Right then, let's talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. United lose a game midweek after being down to 10 men for an hour away in Europe in the Champions League with 5 more games to go. We sit top of the Premier League undefeated. And that defeat makes people lose their goddamn mind. And some of the things that I've been seeing written are insane. I think it's inarguable that under Ole, United have made significant strides and progress under his management. And I think it's also inarguable that that hasn't been reflected in the trophy cabinet. I think there's very well put points to be made about some nuances of the coaching, use of substitutions and tactics in some games. And I think there's a few things that he has come up short on and is correctly criticised for. But I also think there's an overwhelming misunderstanding of what a manager's job is and what's actually achievable and attainable with the squad at his disposal. With the way that United handled going down to 10 men against young boys in terms of tactics, timing of subs, the actual subs, and ultimately the eventual loss, a lot of those questions are being brought up again. And I wanted to try and look at both sides of the argument. And then I'll give you my thoughts on it at the end. Now, pros. He's brought back a smile to Manchester United. And he's brought back belief amongst players and fans. And also, not just those in the ground, but those around the globe worldwide. There is certainly a feel-good factor. What percentage of that is just simply signing Cristiano Ronaldo? I don't know. It's a percentage. His man management skills, for the most part, have proved very effective. He's gotten pretty much record seasons out of several of his players. He's certainly created a family feel. He's navigated some of the real possible dramas over Paul Pogba's contract, the way his agent was coming and speaking, and he's dealt with that, nipped it in the bud. And even though we don't know what the resolution of this is, it isn't being played out in the media every single day like it had been under Jose Mourinho. He's resurrected the career of Luke Shaw, who I think we would all agree was destined for the exit under Jose Mourinho. He managed to get the best season we've seen out of both Tony Marshall, Marcus Rashford. His development of Mason Greenwood's been spectacular. He's had players with huge egos and experience come and not get everything their own way and actually be all right with that in the likes of Cavani, Bruno. He's convinced Varane to come and sign for us, and some players have seen their careers completely elevated, Mason Greenwood especially. He's got United to play provably better attacking football. We've scored 5 or more goals 10 times in the 150-odd games that he's been in charge. We did that twice in the 300 games which preceded that under 3 managers, 2 of which are some of the most experienced and winningest managers of all time in Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho. He brought back an identity to Manchester United and plays with a Manchester United DNA. He's also seen some serious records. That away record, someone on Twitter this morning said to me, that away record doesn't mean anything because everyone's home record was poor last year. Okay, but United had the record. Everyone else had the opportunity, but United have the record. It's worth something. I don't know what it's worth, but it's worth something. It's worth mentioning. We are scoring goals at will. Even Paul Pogba looks sensational under him. There's so much. The sheer weight of youth debuts that have been handed out has been insane. We finished 6th in the Premier League in the 18-19 season with just 66 points, 32 points behind Manchester City. And the season that followed, United finished 3rd, even though it was the same amount of points. But ultimately, you can't compare cross seasons because you can only play in the season that you're in. And then we finished 2nd. with 74 points, only 12 behind Manchester City. We've made up 20 points on Manchester City with the most expensively assembled side and allegedly the greatest manager the world's ever seen. At one point, we looked like the only team that could compete with Manchester City last season. And injuries, fixtures, form ultimately weren't kind to us. But our ability to go to the likes of the Etihad, put them under pressure and beat them is something that we didn't see under the previous management. Certainly not under Jose Mourinho. You'd go to any away big game and you knew Jose would be delighted with a draw and probably all right just losing 1-0. I think Ole turns up to these places and I think he tries to win. They don't win every game. Nobody wins every game, ever. It's a good result to get a draw on the road against your biggest rivals. It is. And you're supposed to win your home game. It's not a good result to get a draw at home. That's why it's a good result to get it away. I believe he goes there with the tactics and the belief that we can win those games. Now, like I said, we don't always win those games, but we at least try. And if I had a quid for every time someone had said to us, I'd rather lose and play attacking football under Mourinho or under Louis, I could have cleared the Glazer debt myself. United play attacking football. Now, sometimes that's counter-attacking. But what's the second word in counter-attacking? It's still attacking football. It's attacking on your terms. It's drawing them out of... Football is a dance around space, right? You either create space, you restrict space, or you try and exploit space. Everything about football is space. So it's just a matter of moving around your team into areas of space. And counter-attacking is just bringing as many of the opposition into one area of the pitch so you can exploit the space in a different area of the pitch. Or it's filling up one area of the pitch with enough of your players that the opposition can't do the things that they want to do in that space. It's just about space. And United have managed the space really well in those games. And we've exploited them in those games. These are the positive things that Ole has created at United. But there are cons. This is not a perfect manager. We're not sitting here having won every single game since he took charge, running out of Brasso because we've got too many trophies to polish. Ole's win percentage at United is 55.77, which is 1% lower than Jose Mourinho's. And it's progress. I actually don't know how it's lower with consecutively higher finishes and seemingly getting to the semi-finals of a lot of cups. We've lost 7 of our 11 Champions League matches under Solskjaer. 13% of those defeats in the competition that have come under Solskjaer, despite him only being in charge for 4.5% of those matches. The squad the last couple of years has become to be a star-studded one. I think we all knew there was lacking serious amount of balance, and I would argue the squad at times has looked like being on par with that of the one Jose built. But, you know, Jose had some serious talent at his disposal. Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Lukaku, Mkhitaryan, Paul Pogba. You know, he had Memphis and Daley Blind and launched them. He had Lukaku and tried to turn him into something else. He had Pogba, but didn't play him like he had him. He had Memphis and give him 4 minutes. Like, you look at some of the players, you look at the teams Jose put out versus the squad that he had at his disposal, and you go, the start of last season, pre-Bruno coming in, you look at the team that United was putting out under Solskjaer. I don't think it's fair to say Solskjaer's team was better than the likes of the teams that Mourinho was putting out. Certainly not when Andreas Pereira is the 10. The no trophies one is a big one. It's 3 years. Have United been the best team in the country in any of those 3 years? No. And ultimately, you don't need to be the best team in the country to win a trophy. And also the fact that Lou Van Gaal and Jose Mourinho were not the best team in the country in any of those years and picked up trophies demonstrates that. You can't sit here and tell me that this United side should have won the league in any of our previous managers' reigns, because the squad's just not there, not compared to some of the other squads around. United should have won the Europa League last season. We should have done. And that was an error. You can't just sack people on every single error. It doesn't work like that. We phoned in a couple of semi-finals and we've been twatted in a couple of semi-finals, especially like the League Cup ones. And do you know what? The semi-final thing was annoying. Then we get to a final. Now we can't win a final. And I know that there's aspects of our fan base, if we actually got a Europa League, would have just said, well, it's only the fucking Europa League. We had chances to win, a couple of chances to win silverware last season. And we needed to have got over the line. I actually think Maguire alone might have been the difference in that game, but we didn't have him. The lack of trophies thing, I think, becomes more focused this season. This Manchester United team, even though not perfect, I think we all know we need a number 6. This Manchester United team is closer to being a complete side than any other side that Solskjaer's had, at least. This is the season he needs to pick up, even an FA Cup or a League Cup. I actually think that we could go quite far in the Champions League, but ultimately, as I sit here talking to you today, there are no trophies under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's reign. Tactics. I think people misunderstand tactics largely. Against bottom of the league, teams that are going to low block, there's not necessarily tactics. You can work on different patterns of play, and I think it would be fair to say that United certainly have improved in that. Certainly. Some of the third-man runs that United play can only have come from the training ground. But we maybe don't see it enough with what we perceive to be the quality of play that we play. I think that you look at some of the other very possession-based focused teams, Leeds, Manchester City, and you look at the patterns that they play in attack and you go, oh, why can't we do that? There's more than one way to achieve the goal here. And I think people misunderstand tactics and patterns in a huge, huge, huge way. Against the bottom of the league where we've often dropped points, you are reliant on your individual magic to break those teams down. Do you think Barcelona had tactics for playing Elche week in, week out? Or was their tactics, give it that little fucker, see what he can do? Literally, that's how you win those games. You are looking for your best players to produce individual moments of magic to win you those games. Especially if a manager's job in those games is to understand the threats and weaknesses of the opposition and how you can exploit those and prevent them from exploiting yours. The rest of it is literally on the guys that take to the field. When I look at his team selection, I by and largely understand it. I think Donny van de Beek could have played a little bit more, but I also kind of understand the reasoning behind why he wouldn't, which makes me wonder why it wasn't his choice to bring him in. The tactics come more into focus in the bigger games, and invariably in those bigger games, I'm talking not necessarily cup finals and things, but against our Premier League opposition, our rivals, invariably we get those pretty good. The substitutions take a little bit too long on the whole, but I think that's become less and less of an issue as he's had more of a squad that he's happy with. We've seen him make impacts at half-time when he's had the likes of Cavani on the bench. When he's turning around and he's got Andreas Pereira and Delo and Fred, he's going, fuck it, we'll just keep going with what we've got. I understand. Not making a single substitution in the Europa League finals at the 100th minute, don't think I can defend that. And there's been other times when he's been slow to react with substitutions. The Young Boys game especially looked like we didn't have a clue what to do if we went down to 10 men. And it looked like our initial plan was then changed very quickly at half time. And then there didn't really seem to be a plan for what those final substitutions were going to be. So I think those are things that you can certainly question and want to see improvements in. Another thing that I'm seeing a lot of people saying, is this forward thinking enough? And that is when he spoke this week about the 6, the 8 and the 10. He was asked what he's actually looking for in a midfielder. And Solskjaer said he isn't after a player to play a specific role, but more of a complete player, like some of United's former greats. And he said, I'm not here to explain every single detail of how I want my team to play. We want a central midfielder who can play. Today's football is about a good 6, 8 and 10. Back in the day, you had proper midfielders, Keane, Scholes, Brian Robson. Now, I can't remember, actually, whether Mike Phelan spoke to me about this on camera when we had him on Late Night Vibe, or if we spoke about it off camera. I definitely talked about it at the time. That's almost word for word what he said, and it's certainly the players he mentioned. Brian Robson especially was one of the players that he mentioned in terms of the 6, 8 and 10 stuff. I've got a feeling it was off camera because I asked him, does Ole still see the 6, 8 and 10 thing? And he said, actually, Ole's a little bit more like that, but he also prefers the midfielder. Can they pass? Can they tackle? Can they shoot? Can they cover space? You know, can they receive under pressure? These are the sorts of things that you're looking for a central midfielder. These are the sorts of things that obviously Mike was looking for, and as part of the coaching staff, I guess that's what Ole is looking for. Now, there's also Kieran McKenna, Michael Carrick, various other people in the coaching staff set up there. But I think it's a curious thing. Now, I use 6, 8 and 10. For me, those are 3 very different roles. If I had to talk you through good 6, 8s and 10s that United have had in the past, I'd say a great 6 would have been Michael Carrick. An 8, probably Roy Keane in his peak. And a lot of people probably think Roy Keane was a 6. Roy Keane was absolutely an 8. He was, he used to get on the end of goals. He was genuinely box to box until his latter years when his legs failed him, and then he did become a 6. And a 10, you're talking Cantona, Bruno Fernandes. These are 3 very, very different roles, and I don't necessarily know if I like that Ole's not looking for a very specific role. I like the information because as I've been trying to analyse transfer rumours, players that we're linked with, team selections, that kind of thing, I'm kind of thinking, oh yeah, they don't really. I go, maybe we'll play a midfield 3 with a 6. Not necessarily. So I find that a very interesting quote. I don't know necessarily whether it's a positive or a negative quote. I just find it interesting information that helps me understand how they're thinking a little bit more. The bottom line is I think there's imperfections and there's faults with Ole. I don't know if they're enough to see him lose his job. I think there's a lot of positives to what he's done at the club, and I think the positives far outweigh the negatives. And I still think that he needs time for this team to bed in for us to really see. You can't just sign 4 first-choice players, put them on the pitch and go fucking look like you've played together for 5 years. They need time to settle in and work out how the other plays and how they can get the best out of each other by doing that sort of thing. Without doing that, you're going to struggle. And I think Ole's got an awful task because he's got the 3rd best squad in the league, probably. Or certainly the 3rd best starting 11 behind Chelsea and behind City. So even though we could make progress this year, we still might come 1 place lower than where we came, which is why it's so important for him to try and pick up some silverware, because a lot of the fan base just see they did that, they did that, they did that. Why is it not constantly going up? Because progress isn't linear, and results are not linear. And football's a game of upsets. The low-scoring nature of football means that upsets happen more frequently than in other sports where you score constantly. That's what makes it interesting. That's why we love it. Not perfect. Doesn't deserve the sack. That's probably where I'd line up on it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you in a bit.